Welcome to the Buck Stops here, the official audio show of NotInHallOfFame.com, and I'm your host, Kirk Buchner, the Buck, the owner and operator of NotInHallOfFame.com, the sister sites, the fictitious Athlete Hall of Fame, the fictitious Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It's Season 1, Episode 46 of the Hall of Fame show, and Evan, Nolan, and I, we've got quite a bit to talk about today. The Baseball Hall of Fame has announced their ballot, or they've unveiled their ballot, rather. 25 people on it, and we do a bit of a preview, not necessarily a prediction at this point, because... well, about a week prior to the actual announcement, we usually have a pretty good idea who's going to get in and who's not, and we sort of explain why that is. And we also look at a couple of tragic passings, that of former Green Bay Packer Paul Hornung and former Miami Dolphin Jake Scott. Without further ado, here's Evan. Evan, how are you? I hear things are good in Chicago, but maybe not so well in Budapest.
Yeah, I'm telling you, we joked last week, and I said at the time it was a bad idea to say that the beige mistress had taken a break here, but she struck only once in the sports world. But like, if you go on Wikipedia for this week, there's like 5 Hungarian folks, everyone from an actor to writers to like all over the place. But the only person who I guess goes for our needs here is the awesomely named Attila Horvath.
That is an awesome name.
It's a pretty amazing name. But he died from COVID at the age of 53. He represented Hungary in the Olympic Games in '96 and in 92 in Barcelona. He finished 5th in Barcelona, 10th in Atlanta. So, and 3rd in the World Championships in Tokyo, Japan in '94. So
she's back.
She's back. Yeah, she had a heck of a week. He was the Hungarian Athlete of the Year in 1994.
Damn.
Yeah. Not very old either. I mean,
no,
53 is not very much.
You know, you wouldn't think that when we're doing a Hall of Fame show that Budapest would be the first city that we're thinking of.
Yeah, well, he was born in, Hungarian is like the hardest language to pronounce, I think, of any language in Europe. So he was born in Kőszeg, but passed away in, you ready for this one? Szombathely? Szombathely. So it's actually not Budapest. I can't tell you where Szombathely is, and that's where he was. So she took a break from Budapest. Szombathely, in case you're wondering, is the 10th largest city in Hungary and the administrative center of Vas County in the west of the country, near the border of Austria.
You know what? I was wondering that.
I'm just trying to get anyone to sponsor us, and if we need a sister city program for the city of Szombathely, Hungary, to get some money, I think that's what we should get.
Nice. So, all right. So I think we should just go to like our main event, which is the Baseball Hall of Fame has put out their ballot, and I love looking at their ballot, not just who's back, but who wasn't included. And this, I think when you and I are talking about this, we're not talking about necessarily what we think is going to happen, because 6 weeks from now, there's a great Twitter handle, Ryan Thibodeau, not Mr. Tibbs is what he calls himself, and this is one of those things, like, why the hell didn't I think of that? Because all he does, he just compiles what the actual baseball voters are doing. So, like, at that point in time, like, the week before, we can sort of have a pretty good idea of who's going to get in or who's going to come close. But right now, what you and I can do is just sort of, like, look at who's on the ballot and what they need to do.
Yeah. And I'd like to talk about a few of them who I expected to make the ballot and didn't. Because there's a big list of... There are a lot... So this year is not a year... So in order to be eligible for this year, you had to retire in 2015 or before. And 2015 was retirement year of a lot of good players. I don't even say very good players, but good players, and not really anyone who may ever get into the Hall of Fame. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, totally. I totally agree with that.
Yeah, so there's some interesting people who showed up and who didn't show up on this list.
Mm-hmm.
There's a clear, no offense, but there's a clear last place person on this list. I'm not sure who Michael Kadire knows in the committee, but he is by far the worst player on the ballot.
I'd agree. I would agree.
And one person who didn't qualify because he didn't play enough was Josh Hamilton. Because in order to be on the ballot, you have to play at least 10 years. And Hamilton only had 9. So he didn't qualify to be on the ballot. It's the only reason he's not here. And that's a guy who, I mean, of all the people whose careers are completely ruined by drugs, I mean, in baseball, and Strawberry and Doc Goodwin are probably 1 and 2. But Josh Hamilton's got to be number 3, you'd imagine.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I guess my first, we're going a little bit backwards to what I was sort of thinking, but which is all right. For me, the player who didn't qualify the most, that just sticks out in my mind, only because I remember watching him play a couple times when I went actually to Cleveland for a bit, was Grady Sizemore.
Yeah, Sizemore's my number 1 person. Sizemore's a significantly better player than Kadire.
Yeah.
He's my number 1 person who didn't make this ballot, who's surprising.
Yeah.
I don't think there's... I'm getting this up here. I just hitting his WAR here. I also say that with David Aardsma not making the list, Hank Aaron's record of being alphabetically first is safe in the Baseball Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
I think I told you that story before. His first pitching appearance for the Giants, he came out and after the game, the reporters were interviewing him and told him that he had broken the major league record by being the alphabetically first person ever to appear in a major league game, breaking Hank Aaron's record. And they said, "What do you have anything to say about that?" And his response was, "I'd like to thank my parents."
Nice.
So, so he didn't make it. He was 5th in WAR. So he played 10 seasons, 27.7 WAR, which is nowhere near the Hall of Fame. Hamilton is at 28.2, by the way. Mm-hmm. Kadire is all the way down at 17.7. But Sizemore is definitely the best player who did not make this. I always like David DeJesus, who's not on this list. Alex Rios is probably more famous for his bad contract than anything else. But those are probably the top guys who didn't make it, I would say, on the ballot. Unless you're a big, I don't know, I love Johnny Gomes. But if you're a big Randy Wolf fan or Dan Ugla or Bruce Chen.
Dan Ugla.
Rafael Soriano.
Ugla had a few good years, though. There was a time like Ugla, Sizemore, like, and again, going back to Sizemore, just only because I happened to be in a game, or not in a game, obviously I didn't play at that, in Cleveland, watching that, and he was clearly the best player there. He was the main star. So, like in 2008, if you were to say to me, "Okay, we're gonna have our Baseball Hall of Fame ballot," and Sizemore wouldn't have been on it, I would have been surprised.
Mm-hmm.
Ugla too. I mean, like, but he became more famous just for his folly more than anything else.
Agreed. Yeah, agreed. So, yeah, I'm a little surprised he's up there. And I did say Soriano. Rafael Soriano is a very good closer for a while. That has the most saves of anybody who retired this year and didn't make it either. Also, Corey Hart, meaning that Corey Hart is now eligible for 2 Hall of Fames. It's not going to get it either, no matter how often he wears his sunglasses at night.
Damn it! So. I was going to fucking do that, you asshole.
Well, thank you. This podcast is just usually just stealing your jokes ahead of time.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. All right, so I guess we should. Damn it, that was my bet. The returning candidates.
We got to tell us that we had like an 8-minute conversation before this podcast, which is a record for us. Got to tell me your setup line ahead of time.
Yeah, well, I suck. I suck.
All right, so we should get to the actual ballot.
Yeah. So the highest returning man, Kurt Schilling, 70% last year, ninth year. He's keeping his mouth shut because Kurt Schilling should have been in the Baseball Hall of Fame at least 5 years ago. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, it's surprising. It's surprising he's out this long. His mouth has something to do with it. The fact he may or may not have stolen $70 million from the state of Rhode Island may have something to do with it. I wonder how much his lack of performance at the Mitchell hearings, because he's the one person who's at the Mitchell hearings who's not really accused of doing any sort of drugs. It would look to be sort of the outspoken voice of reason. It was really underwhelming in that situation. I wonder if that has something to do with it. I wonder if the fact that Yankees fans still are convinced there was ketchup on his sock has something to do with it. But he was clearly the best pitcher on 2 World Series winning teams and still a very good pitcher on a third. I take that back. 2000, he was the best. Well, he was with Randy Johnson and Pedro Martinez on those other 2 teams. So it's hard to say he was the best on either of those teams. But he was no worse than 1B on either of those teams. I mean, he shared the MVP with Johnson at 01. I think it's going to be interesting. I know we're not talking about who necessarily is getting in, but I don't think the Hall's going to want to have another empty class like they had, 2013?
Right. But
somewhere around
there is no empty class in theory because whoever gets into this class will just join the 2020 class.
I guess that's true.
Which
I guess that is true.
Indirectly helps Kurt because this is my opinion anyway. Kurt Schilling is unliked by the voters, but anyone who is logical has to look at Kurt Schilling and say he belongs. If they wait another year, Kurt Schilling will be a headliner. Here he's second, third? It's Jeter. It's Derek Jeter and everyone else.
Yeah, Jeter, Walker, and then whoever gets in. So, I mean, because I think there's only 2 players that have a chance of getting in this year. And one is Schilling, who had 70% of the vote, and almost nobody's gotten that high has not gotten in. And the other one's much further down, only got 52% of the vote.
Yep.
I think it'd jump all the way up, but that's Omar Pascal.
Right.
Because the 2 in the between there, so Schilling finished 3rd, Pascal finished 6th, the 2 in between are Clemens and Bonds, and they haven't really moved much in a while now. They've been basically stuck between 50 and 60, or 55 and 62
right.
for the last 5 years. So there's a ton of movement. I just feel like if the people don't want to, they're going to want to vote for someone. If they don't want to vote for, they may hold their nose and vote for Schilling, but they don't want to. It's entirely possible they can talk themselves into Omar Pascal. So
they could. Schilling is just so close, and he wasn't tapped with a PED thing. I mean, he was and he wasn't. If that makes sense. So this would be for those who don't like him in terms of voters. And then let's just use you and I as an example. Like, we're sort of becoming not friends, but associates with people who in virtual halls of fame, right?
Yeah,
it does affect an opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, so with Kurt Schilling, so with Schilling, this is the year to put him in if you don't like him and you know he belongs.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah, because next year is all going to be about Clemens and Bonds and what you're going to do with him.
Right.
Because what happens is we had the problem where we had too many people on the ballot who needed to get in.
Mm-hmm.
And then they didn't know through the PED guys, instead of making it so people could vote for more than 10, they decided to limit your time in the ballot to 10 years, which is the opposite of what they should have done. They should have kept it at 15 and gotten rid of the 10-person cap.
Mm-hmm.
And it came to a head in 2013 where they voted nobody in. By the way, if Schilling gets in, do you know how many people from that 2013 ballot will be Hall of Famers by the end of the year?
No. Ooh.
Take a guess. How many people on that ballot are going to be Hall of Famers who, when they elected nobody in 2013?
2.
No, this will be the 9th.
9th, okay. Well, fuck. So guess the number.
The top 6 that year were Craig Biggio, Jack Morris, Jeff Bagwell, Mike Piazza, Tim Raines, Lee Smith. Then Schilling, Clemens, and Bonds. Then Edgar Martinez, Alan Trammell, Larry Walker.
Well, 2-9. That was close.
Yeah. And the guy after that's Fred McGriff, who we both think as soon as he gets to that seniors committee, he's going to get in. So it's just stupid how they did that in 2013. They're going to have, Clemens and Bonds eventually I think are going to get in. That means the top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. The top 14 people from that class to get in, they didn't elect anybody. Anyway, off topic.
Okay, so do we talk about Clemens and Bonds right now? Both of which eclipse the 60% mark. I'm not sure about yourself, but 5 years ago, I did not think they could hit the 60 point. What do you think?
I wasn't sure. There's still an issue. There's always double standards on how we do things, particularly in baseball. Robbie Cano this week got suspended for a year for a second negative drug test. Yeah. Right? And then Miguel Ozuna, he's the guy who was with the Blue Jays and then got traded to the Astros. Ozuna, is his first name Miguel? I can't remember. But who beat the hell out of his wife and didn't get that bad a suspension. Just the double standards on things that we have in baseball anyway. And don't get me started on Joe Torre and particularly Tony La Russa in the Hall of Fame. But we can't get Sheffield and McGuire and Canseco in because they were cheating. But the managers of the teams that they were cheating on are already Hall of Famers. And Bud Selig's the Hall of Famer, which is a whole separate category. So the moralism that exists among the baseball writers, I don't know if I ever thought he'd get to 60, but it's kind of crazy that it's taken this long, particularly since several of the other people were accused of drug use. Mike Piazza, Ivan Rodriguez, who else is in the Hall who was accused?
Well, those are the big two.
Those are the big two. But there were whispers. There were whispers about Bagwell for years.
That's true.
No proof, but there were whispers about him.
Yeah.
So all those guys in the Hall, there are other players who definitely used amphetamines in the 70s. There are other players like I've said before, I have no proof of this, and I'm not saying it. But if someone told me Ricky Henderson was using steroids through the end of his career with the way he was built, that would not have shocked me either. Right? And so all those guys are kind of, gray are in, and then these two guys who never were officially proven to have used steroids, but heavily accused are not, who are clearly one of the best 5 pitchers and one of the 5 best hitters in baseball history, would you say?
I'd say top 3 for both.
I'm going minimum of 5, right?
Right.
I don't know how many other hitters were walked in the first inning with nobody on, like Bonds used to be. Clemens has got 7 Cy Youngs. Oh, by the way, there's an article came out when they announced this. Someone had the best Hall of Famer or best player not in the Hall of Fame from each team. And for the Red Sox, it was David Ortiz. And with all respect to David Ortiz they never won 7 MVP awards. Mm-hmm. The best player not in the Hall of Fame for the Boston Red Sox is Roger Clemens.
Agreed.
And I love me some David Ortiz. He won 3 championships in a city that had never won a baseball championship for 4 generations. But Clemens is, if you're having an all-time draft, you're taking drugs out of the situation. Clemens is drafted, depending if you're doing one for every team, I don't know, 14 rounds before Ortiz, who couldn't play the field. So, anyway. Yeah, where were we? I'm sorry, I got distracted in my own story.
Oh, we were talking about Clemens Bonds. The same issue that goes on. I think that you've sent this to me many times. Who are the voters who would say Clemens yes, Bonds no, or vice versa? How?
Yeah, I've always wondered because Clemens has always been ahead of Bonds by a little bit. So the first year Clemens got 37.6, Bonds 36.2. But Clemens has always been slightly ahead, and it's by 2 or 3 votes every time. I don't get it. It's not like Clemens was nicer to the media than Bonds was.
No. I mean,
so I've never understood that. So last year he got 61% and Bonds got 60.7. So it's probably a 2-vote difference. But who are those 2 dudes?
Yeah, I think we're going to get to there when we get to Sami Sosa, when we're looking below here, and one's white, one's black, but
it's Sami Sosa's not both. Sorry.
Well, there's that. No, well done. But still, it's
I'm probably going to hell for that comment.
Oh well,
anyway,
I'll see you there. Mine's going to be the condo below you. But when you look at Clemens and Bonds, here we have 2 guys who were. How do I put? Okay, well, let's go to Sami Sosa now. Sosa. Okay. Clemens, Bonds were okay. Even during this period where we knew there were shenanigans, they were let's just say call it what it is, assholes. Sami Sosa was an undercover asshole. And then people figured out he was an asshole.
Mm-hmm.
There's a bit of a difference there.
But everyone loved him up until the congressional testimony.
Sure. But the people who were sort of in the position where they're either voting for Hall of Fame, opinion, whatever you want to call it, Sami was that one guy where it's well, fuck, you were lying to me. Mm-hmm. No one thought that about Roger. No one thought that about Barry. Those were 2 guys who were superstars, and if you don't like me, well, I don't care. Screw you. Sami played the game, and Sami was lying.
Yeah.
And I do think it affects his vote. I really do. Because, all the people who were actually voting on the Baseball Hall of Fame, Roger Clemens, Barry Bonds, they never sort of, kissed ass. Sami did.
Yeah.
And he kissed ass, and then he lied about it. The other 2 didn't. And let's be honest, Barry and Roger were better than Sami. Which is crazy to say because Sami Sosa was so good.
Yeah.
And I really do believe that it comes down to this weird people voting. And I think maybe because of the project that we'll talk about later in future shows that you and I are working on. This shit matters. I really believe it.
Yeah. Because one of the people who's still above Sami is Manny Ramirez.
Mm-hmm.
Is a definitive drug user.
Right.
He failed, I can't remember, he failed at least twice. I can't remember if it's the 3rd time. But he failed at least twice. But Manny's a lovable doofus. Manny's sort of the baseball version of Rob Gronkowski, in a way. Like, nobody really took him too seriously. He was just kind of a fun-loving guy who had a sweet swing, loved to hit the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got essentially twice as many votes as Sami does at this point going in. And he started 4 years after Sami did. Although he's not going up very much either in the whole system. He's been hovering around the low 20s on these ballots for years now.
He's Urkel. He's Steve Urkel. Like, did I do that? Because Ramirez, and you're right,
Yeah.
Ramirez should not be this much higher than Sosa.
I mean, I think Ramirez was a better overall hitter than Sosa. But yeah, I mean, in terms of, and he won championships, which Sosa did not do. Or he won a championship, which Sosa did not do. So, was he still in the 07 team? I'm trying to remember. I can't remember right now. But he also flew down the traveling secretary of the Red Sox, and and Sami never did anything like that either. So
okay, we'll get to Sami. Sami did his own shit. I want to ask you questions though about Clemens and Bonds. So both of them had 61. Yeah. Well, Clemens 61%, Bonds 60.7. What do you think they need to get? What percentage to sort of like evolve to the potential like 10-year thing? Because they're going in their 9th year.
Well, here's the thing: if they had 15 years, they'd get in.
Mm-hmm.
I think. They don't, but if they did, they get in. So next year, because I think that has something to do with it too. Who's going to be up next year? So next year's top people coming in are David Ortiz and Alex Rodriguez. They're next. Yeah, I know that's going to be interesting. It'll be interesting if Ortiz gets in and none of the other guys do. The others, by the way, Mark Teixeira, Jimmy Rollins, Coco Cricks, Carl Crawford, Justin Morneau, Prince Fielder. Just a better overall group of players than this year's. So I think in order to get there, knowing that next class has some serious discussion and people who are going to be on the ballot for a while, I think Teixeira and Rollins are certainly candidates to be on the ballot for a while. I would say they need at least 67%. I was going to say 65. I think we need to get to 67.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I was actually looking at 67.5. So, and I hope they do. I really do. Before we sort of like go any further, I think you and I are the same ilk where if you didn't and this is sort of like more in Major League Baseball. What was your rules at a certain point? Clemens and Bonds, okay, we both know, I think we all know that they cheated, but there was no rule in Major League Baseball. No, fair to say?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I still bring it up when they had the home run chase between McGwire and Sosa. There's that one reporter who noticed the vial in Mark McGwire's locker and asked him about it.
Right.
And the rest of the baseball reporters turned on the dude. Like, how dare you? It was in his personal locker. And these are the same people now standing in judgment of McGwire that he used.
Right.
Like, the hypocrisy in baseball, like I said, no one hates their sport more than baseball and baseball writers.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they just hate themselves, and I don't get it. But yeah, no, I think if they had 15 years, both those guys would get in. They're not going to have 15 years because of the way they change the rules. I don't think they're going to get in this way. I think they're going to have to end up on committees all the time. We're going to have to be hearing about this for the next 20 years.
I honestly think that they did this sort of like they changed the 15 years to 10 years with the hope that they could eliminate the PED guys. I really believe that.
Yeah.
And I hope.
Yeah, I mean,
I was just going to say, I hope for that reason. I hope that Clemens and Bonds get in because I would vote for them if I could. So I guess moving on, we have Omar Pascal, who I find very interesting. 52.8% last year. It would not shock me if he just shocks the world and goes to 75. What do you think?
Yeah, I told you that. I think that he's the best. He and can I just go the person just below him on the list at the same time?
Please.
Yeah, so he and Scott Rowland have the absolute best chance of jumping up.
You think Rowland will go from will get in though?
No, but I wouldn't be shocked if Rowland is right under. I mean, by right under, I mean like within a percentage point or two of Clemens and Bonds.
Okay, fair enough. So, do you think Omar is going to get in though this year?
I don't.
Because I don't think he will, but I think he's going to come between a 65 and 70.
I think that Bonds and Clemens should hope he does. Because if he's on the ballot next year and Ortiz and Rodriguez are in there as well, it's going to be easier to vote for Vizquel above all of that other noise. You know what I mean? If he's in already, they don't have to worry about that as much.
Okay, no, fair enough. So should we look?
Because I think Ortiz is going to be a first ballot next year. He has over 500 home runs and allegedly had the drug issue in 2003, although we can't prove it one or another. His name and A-Rod's were leaked as having used some illicit substance, but no names were supposed to be leaked, and they had no idea whether they did or not. So they have no way to defend themselves. So he had that, but he never had a drug test after that failed, unlike A-Rod. So I think that Ortiz, I think, is going to be first ballot next year, and they're going to have to decide what to do with A-Rod. But if Ortiz and Vizquel are both there, that may be the class.
It's going to be crazy. It's going to be absolutely crazy.
You got A-Rod, Clemens, and Bonds all on the same ballot, and none of them are going to get in.
Okay. So then beyond that, we've got... all right, so let's talk about Roland. All right, you know what I feel about Billy Wagner. Wagner 31.7 last year.
I know how you feel about very much how you feel about Billy Wagner.
Yeah, I know you do. So, does Wagner get to 40%?
Oh, I think he does. I mean, who's his competition for relievers on this list?
Zero.
LaTroy Hawkins?
No, there is none. Doesn't mean I think he should get there. I still think Wagner sucks for this, but okay. Yeah,
well, you have a big standard on performance in the playoffs.
I do.
Which is very important, which is, again, Schilling. It's the Jack Morris argument, except Schilling was a better pitcher than Jack Morris. So, yeah, he's probably going to get – he's at 31.7. Well, part of it, too, this year, by the way, I don't know if you noticed, this is a really small ballot.
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
Well, they're only 25. Last year, there were 33. The year before that, there were 36. So there's more, going back to 20, what year is this? There were 38 in 20, or 37 in 2013 when they elected nobody. So I wonder if that's going to allow people to concentrate on a few more players and vote a little bit more. So I think he does get to 40, looking at it.
Okay.
Which is kind of amazing.
All right, so I can debate Wagner another day. The next person that I look at, who I really like, Gary Sheffield.
I like Sheffield too.
Yeah, I do. I like him a lot. He's got to the 30-point. I didn't think he'd even get there, but here he is. Like, what do you think?
Another bit of a petulant player that doesn't help him, particularly with the drug stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think
the whole way. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I think Sheffield, if he's lucky, in the next few years he gets to the 50-point, but that's about it. He's not getting in the Baseball Hall of Fame.
Yeah, it's crazy because if you look at the Hall of Fame monitors for this ballot, Sheffield is the 7th best player on the ballot, according to the Hall of Fame monitor. Bonds, Clemens, Ramirez. Bonds, Clemens are both super ridiculously high. Ramirez also very high. Sosa. Then the next guy on this list, Todd Helton. And then Schilling, Sheffield, Pettit, Kent, Vizquel, Andrew Jones, Wagner. Wagner's over 100. I'm sorry, man.
And I love Gary Sheffield. He also bounced around, which didn't help him either.
Yeah, and some of that's not his fault because his forcing his way out of Milwaukee was his fault. But then he was on that awesome Padres team. I don't remember that team that had 5 All-Stars or 5 All-Star starters in '92, and then they just decided to trade everybody off. And then he ends up on the Marlins team that went to World Series, and then they trade everybody off. So I mean, it's not like forcing his way out of Milwaukee was an ego thing, and that was his fault. But it's not his fault. He kept ending up being traded to teams that had no interest in winning long term. They were poor and got a good team and dumped everybody.
I just want to go backwards.
But it doesn't help when you're trying to get in the Hall.
Yeah, so. I got to go backwards. When you said awesome and Padres team, how often does those two words go together? But it does happen.
Oh, very, very rarely.
Right.
But they had Gwynn, McGriff, Sheffield, Tony Fernandez, I think, was a starter. I'm trying to remember who was on that Padres team. It was such a good team, and then they blew it up. And they end up on the ridiculous, out-of-nowhere winning 93 Marlins team that made all Cubs fans and Red Sox fans cry in their beer.
So we've got Todd Helton. Helton, I think he's going in at some point with the Colorado Rockies. Love this player. He'll get there. 29.2% last year. I don't think I'm wrong, am I?
Yeah, I think he'll get in too. Walker's in now, which I think helps him with people who are focused on one Colorado guy maybe at a time. Helton, I think, deserves to be there. Yeah, I'd say eventually he gets in. It's going to take a little bit of time, though, I think.
Yeah. So you mentioned Manram, 28.2% last year. The one that I can't stop thinking about, Robinson Cano, this year, or just this week, rather. Wow. Mm-hmm. He got his year-long suspension. We don't know if Robbie's going to come back. Probably not. So Cano, if you look at his jaws and if you look at his overall WAR, he's a Hall of Famer, but barely, in my opinion. So now, but if you compare him to Manram, he's below that. Does this suspension, and in my opinion it does, completely eliminate Robinson Cano from the Baseball Hall of Fame?
No.
No?
I'd say no because I don't know exactly. I think everything changes if more steroids guys get in.
Okay, fair enough.
I don't say it entirely eliminates him. I think I'm going to give him I'd say he's 99% out, but there's still a possibility with his career and everything that he might get in. I think it's going to be very difficult. He's really near some big counting numbers, and had he gotten there, he may have to stick around to get there. But I don't think it officially eliminates him, although it does seem like a lot of writers are drawing a line in the sand between when there's no testing and then testing positive when there was testing.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact he's done it twice probably does make a bigger difference. Wow. So I don't say he's entirely eliminated. I bet he remains in the ballot for a little bit, but I don't think he'll be a Hall of Famer. I just don't think he's entirely eliminated.
Okay.
Being a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I guess you and I are sort of a little different there. I think this kills him. I really do. I think it puts him as a one and done. But we'll see.
I mean, even Palmeiro even stayed on the ballot for 4 years, and he lied to Congress knowing he was about to be suspended. So you never know exactly how things are going to go. But
okay, Rafi had better stats, though.
True.
Yeah. All right, Jeff Kent, 8th year, 27.5. I like Jeff. If he gets to 30, it's a win. That's all I can say.
Yeah. I don't think Kent's getting in. He was a very, very good player. Still has the single dumbest excuse for a injury of all time. Easily disproven. He was watching his truck and fell and hurt his ankle when he really, was riding a motorcycle and crashed.
Well, maybe the truck was near where he was washing his motorcycle.
I guess, he was watching his motorcycle while driving at the back of the truck.
Could have been.
Should have been. And he is also the only person to appear on Survivor who's on this list. So he's got that going for him.
There's that. Andrew Jones, who I really like.
Yeah.
I hope I'd vote for him. Would you?
Injuries killed him. I have to look at this whole list here as to who I'd actually vote for. Would I vote for? Well, let's come back to that.
Okay. All right. So we got next week.
If I go and vote for 10, he may not make it.
All right. So then we got Sami Sosa, who is. Oh my God. Sami Sosa, as much as he's got all these issues, should Sami be this far down?
There's something else going on with Sami I don't quite understand, because, he's not even allowed around the Cubs until he apologizes for something. I don't quite understand about that either. So the answer to that is no. He should not be this far down. But then again, Andrew Jones shouldn't be this far down either. I mean, he's never getting in.
I think with Sami, though, in comparison, and I already know I already said this, but Sami was with that guy who a lot of writers and a lot of reporters bought into him being a great guy. And it turned out he wasn't.
Yeah.
Whereas Clemens and Bonds, they were great players, but nobody, even in their elite, thought, you know what, let's hang out with Barry. Barry's a great guy. And maybe that's a little bit part of why Sami's votes are so bad. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, there may be something to that. I don't know. Also, I don't think, I made the joke earlier, but I don't think the skin bleaching thing he did is helping him because it's making him seem crazy.
That's true, too. No, but it does.
Yeah.
You're not... It's a very strange look that Sami Sosa has. Sami is one of those guys like, oh my God, I love you. And like, oh, you lied to me? And that affects the people who are voting for him. Sami has no shot. The fact that he's still there is incredible, but yet his overall number, which, what was it, last year, 13.9% for a guy that, like in 1998, if you were to say that he's at 13, this percentage of the ballot, not in the Hall of Fame, who would have believed it?
Well, I mean, who would have believed that McGuire wouldn't be in at this point either?
That's true.
I mean, that's what I think would have been McGuire's 15th year.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree. But Sosa had better overall numbers than McGuire.
Yeah, agreed.
So, I mean, the whole thing is very strange. Sami's not getting in, and he's not going to get to 20%. There's a couple guys here left that I want your take on. Andy Pettit, who I've said is the stereotype, or not stereotype, is the blueprint. All right, you took steroids. This is how you handle it. Let's say...
Yeah, I mean, he only used it once, so...
Right. But he can't... Well, in terms of the press, so, I mean, like, Pettit's got a bit of a pass, but would Pettit be a Hall of Famer anyway? And I'm not sure.
I do think it's weird with those Yankees teams that, I mean, Pettit was pretty much the number 2 starter behind Clemens at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And David Wells, you could say, was number 3 or 4, but Mussina is the only guy from those guys who may get in. Very strange. But, yeah, Pettit was very, very good. I never considered Pettit to be a Hall of Famer. He was the Yankees version of Derek Lowe to me. A good pitcher under pressure, better than Derek Lowe, but a good pitcher under pressure, but not someone who I was like, that guy's fantastic or amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm thinking of all those Yankees pitchers. How many of them I would take over Pettit? I would have taken Clemens, Randy Johnson. David Wells scared the hell out of me every time he's up there. I would take David Wells. I'd probably take David Cohn. Now getting into like the Jimmy Key, Brown. I can't think Brown's first name right now. I can think of his first name. I can think of his first name.
Well, Kevin?
He's there forever. Kevin Brown, thank you. Kevin Brown, A-range. That's where we are with Pettit. You know, I mean, I'd probably take Mussina ahead of him too.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're talking like the 6th. I mean, he was there for a long time. He's like the 6th best Yankees pitcher of his era. Like, how many would you do? So, yeah.
Not fair enough.
He's a very good player. He's not a Hall of Famer.
All right. So we have the last guy who returned, Bobby Abreu. I love Bobby Abreu. I really do.
I know you do.
But I don't think he's a Hall of Famer.
I'm sorry, you broke up there. You do or don't?
Do not.
Do not? Yeah, I don't think he is either. He's a very good player, though. I'm glad he got more than 1 year on the ballot. I think he'll remain on the ballot again this year, and I think he's going to fall off next year.
Yeah, and it's nothing. It's nothing against Abreu. I would love to have him on my team, and in terms of overall Hall of Fameness, if that's a word, no, he's not there. But I'm thrilled, like legit thrilled, he made it to another ballot. So I've got actually another bet for you. I think I'm up now. Well, I'm down 2. Because you were up 4. I'm gonna win the Patriots not winning the division.
You are not.
I'm not. I am.
You are not. The Patriots are going to win that division. I don't care what you say.
Okay,
they're
fine.
4-5 right now. They're 4-5 right now, and they're still going to win the division.
All right then. You're delusional, but that's okay.
Actually, I am delusional. The Dolphins are actually going to win the division because they legitimately play nobody other than the Patriots between now and the end of the year.
All right.
They play.
Okay. So before we have all this all, I'm down 4. All right, I'm down 4. But no, I'm down 3 because I won the Houston one.
Yeah, you won the Houston bet.
Okay.
Because it wasn't a season.
Don't care. I don't care. It's a win. It's a win. Here's going to be the bit that I'm going to make. We've got Mark Burley, AJ Burnett, Michael Gadire. Burley, Burnett, Kadire, Heron, Troy Hawkins, Tim Hudson, Torrey Hunter. I'm going to give you an over-under of 7.5. Of
for total votes?
Yep. Let's pick over
or
under.
Get a total of 7.5 or more.
7.5%.
All right, so looking at these guys, Swisher and Kadire should be zeros.
Mm-hmm.
Just automatically. Burnett, probably a 0. Heron, probably a 0. Maybe a 1 for one of those guys. Victorino, the Flying Hawaiian, very fun player on a couple championship teams. I'd say he's also probably a 0, though. But Troy Hawkins, 21 years in the league. I don't think Troy Hawkins he probably gets maybe a couple votes. Barry Zito and Tim Hudson kind of go together. Both of those A's teams. I'd say Hudson probably gets more. I think Zito's probably getting no more than 1 or 2. Hudson might get 3 or 4. And then the 3 I think may get some votes are Aramis Ramirez, Mark Burley, and Torrey Hunter.
Okay.
So 7.5%.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
We got to go over or under. I'll take the opposite.
I have to think about this one, man. That's a good number.
Thank you.
7.5% is a good number. So I'm looking at last year. Canerco, Jason Giambi, Alfonso Soriano combined for 5.5 on their own. Chavez and Cliff Lee got us to 6.5. And then at 7.7, adding in the votes for Adam Dunn, Rola Bonnes, Brad Penny, and J.J. Poots. It's so crazy to me. J.J. Poots got a vote, and Josh Beckett, who is a major part of 2 championship teams, did not. I'll take the over, barely.
Wow. Okay. That's our bet.
Yeah, I think you're expecting to have to take the over.
Yeah, I was actually.
I'm going to say that with the fewer people on the ballot, that Burley. I've already seen 1 vote for Burley out there.
I saw that
he's
too.
getting at least 1. So I'm going to say Burley gets about 3.5%. Hunter gets about 2%, and Aramis Ramirez gets like 1.5%.
All right.
And so between the 3 of them, that gets 3.5, and that gets me almost 7. So, and then the rest just get made up and off votes for, Shane Victorino invited someone to his wedding, so they decided to vote for him.
Very nice.
Situation.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm going to say it's going to be barely over. I think it's going to be over.
All right, I love this bet. Do we close off here with a couple big deaths? Paul Hornung.
Yeah, I mean,
pretty big.
The handsomest and most dangerous man in football at one point.
Yeah, it's This is the fourth big Green Bay Packer to pass away.
Yeah, the Packers have had the Packers and the Chiefs have had tough years with this stuff. And the Dolphins have too. Well, we'll get to the other one, but it's been a tough year. I mean, what do you want to say about Hornung? I mean, this is your site. You have a lot of stuff on him, I'm sure.
I think my biggest thing with Hornung is, and maybe I'm mistaken on this. So, like, when Paul Hornung and Alex Karras got suspended, why was Hornung sort of, like, getting a pass and Karras did not get in till, like, 10, 15 years after he died? What am I not understanding? There must be something.
People really hated Webster?
No, I hated Webster, but... it was an awful show, but no, maybe you're onto something. Like when I look back at oh crap, I'm blanking here. The Green Bay Packer who just finally got in, offensive lineman, still alive.
Oh, crap. Hold on. Yeah, it's on the tip of my brain. Keep talking, I'll get it.
Yeah, which is sad because I actually interviewed him for the site. Well,
man, you either need to drink more or less. So that's all I can say about that.
Something like that. But I do believe there's something with the people who are voting that especially if you're a writer, if that person sort of became a bigger deal than you did, it does affect your opinion.
Jerry Kramer.
Thank you. What the hell? Right?
It was there. I was there. I just couldn't think of it. So yeah, Jerry Kramer.
Right. So I mean, like Jerry Kramer was actually one of the first. I can't believe I couldn't remember his name, but I can remember everything else about him. So Jerry Kramer was one of the first athletes, not just football players, just athletes in general, to have a top 10 New York Times bestseller. So if you were like one of these artists or writers, whatever, and this guy did something that you couldn't do, it kind of plays with you. Especially, and I did get to interview him. The man's a genius. I talked to him. I felt after interviewing him like just like a better person just for like the 20 minutes I spoke with the guy.
Wow.
It is one of my most favorite interviews I've ever done.
Wow.
By a wide margin. And does that make some kind of jealousy for people on the other thing? Yeah, I'd say so.
It very well may. I mean, I never understood how Jerry Kramer was on one of your list for a long time. And for the very reason, just like, how do the same people who have him as like the top 50 players of all time, top 75, he's the only one left. It wasn't that hard to figure out, really. Yeah, I mean, he was a 5-time first-team All-Pro. Member of the NFL's All-Decade Team of the 60s. Member of the 50th Anniversary All-Time Team. 2-time second-team All-Pro. 2-time champion for the Super Bowl. 5-time NFL champion pre-Super Bowl. Like, and I know we're talking about Paul Hornung. Hornung was a 2-time first-team All-Pro and 1-time second-team All-Pro. Now, to be fair, it took Hornung 12 times on the ballot to finally get in. So there was a long wait for him to get there. But he's been in since '86, and Jerry Kramer just got in, 2 years ago?
Right. But then Hornung was also in the same group where, because it was him and Alex Karras who were left off. Or, sorry, who were suspended in the same year.
Right.
So
for gambling.
Right. So is Hornung
Karras
that
got
much
in
better
last
than
year posthumously, but that was his first time ever appearing on a ballot.
Right. So is Hornung that much better than Karras? And I don't think so.
No. I mean, other than the fact Karras played for the Lions, and the Lions have won one playoff game since 1957.
Right. Yeah, so it was just one of those weird things that I wonder about. Also because, like, Alex Karras became a celebrity. You know, just from, being Mongo in Blazing Saddles, being a bit in Monday Night Football. Alex Karras is one of those few people that there are a lot of people who, when they think of him, have no idea that he was a football player.
That's also true. His role as Mongo may be just as famous, honestly, at this point.
It is, and that does that matter to some of the voters? Maybe, I don't know. It shouldn't, but maybe it does.
Yeah, but to answer your question, by the way, Karras was a 3-time first-team All-Pro and 6-time second-team All-Pro.
Mm-hmm.
So Hornung was twice first-team and 1 second-team, and Karras was 3-time first-team and 6-time second-team, and never even got nominated until this past year, when he got in 8 years after he passed away. He passed away in 2012 at the age of 77.
So I guess the last person to look at today is Jake Scott.
Yeah. Actually, before we get to Jake Scott, can I just can we just mention the Black College Hall of Fame for a second?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, please.
Yeah, my transition here is also elected on his first nomination, like Alex Karras, was Winston Hill last year, and Winston Hill was now a member of the Black College Football Hall of Fame on a pretty interesting class that they had this year. So among the people who were nominated, I think we went through this a few weeks ago, were Ben Coates, Donald Driver, Nate Newton, Albert Lewis, some other pretty big names in football. Jake Reed was a pretty good wide receiver for the Vikings. But we had a class that included Winston Hill. They had a 5-player class. All of whom were players who we're familiar with. Hill's the only one who's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. But we had Coy Bacon. You remembered Bacon when we talked about this earlier?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we talked about him. Former Cincinnati Bengal, who did very, very well there.
Yeah, he led the league in sacks his first year at the Bengals in 76. He had 21 and a half sacks in 1976. 21 and a half is a very large number of sacks.
Well, unofficial sacks, but yes.
They're unofficial? When do they start keeping them?
82.
Oh. Okay. Well, I'm taking this off for them, so that must have been unofficial then. So anyway, Coy Bacon, who passed away in 2008, was elected. Greg Coleman, a punter, was elected. The first African-American punter in NFL history. Member of the Vikings 40th anniversary team. He played at, by the way, Coy Bacon played at Jackson State. Greg Coleman at Florida A&M, the Rattlers. Any Greg Coleman memories you want to share?
From the Rattlers, no. I got nothing.
Got nothing, okay. Jimmy Giles, who is a tight end from Alcorn State, who played for the Oilers, Buccaneers, and Lions and Eagles, 4-time Pro Bowler. Member of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers Ring of Honor, was elected. Already brought up Hill, who played at Texas Southern, and is in the New York Jets Ring of Honor, now Hall of Famer as of, he would have been inducted this year had they had a ceremony. He was elected this year. Mm-hmm. And Roynell Young, safety and defensive back, also at Alcorn State, 3-time All-SWAC conference performer, played for the Eagles mainly from 80 to 88. As Pro Bowl selection in 81, playing the Super Bowl that year. And Coach Willard Bailey, who was the coach of Norfolk State, St. Paul's College, Virginia University of Lynchburg, had 238 career wins and won 7 Central Intercollegiate Athletic Association Conference championships. So,
well, that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah. I just figured it was a good time to transfer that since we just talked about Winston-Hill.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So, yeah.
So I guess we'll close up with Jake Scott.
Yeah. So just before we get to Jake Scott, let me just go through a couple other people who we should probably just mention who passed away this week.
Yeah, please.
A couple of NBA champions, Walt Davis, who played for 2-time NBA champion for the Philadelphia Warriors and St. Louis Hawks. Also a gold medalist in the 1962 Olympics. In the high jump, despite being born with polio and being able to walk for 3 years when he was a kid. Kind of an amazing story. He's a member of the Texas Sports Hall of Fame and passed away at the age of 89 earlier this week. Also, a beloved bench warmer on the 1981 Celtics, Terry Durod, who was literally the last guy on the bench and was Brian Scalabrine of his time. Passed away earlier this week. His number was retired by the Detroit Mercy Titans, but he spent his time after the NBA as a Detroit firefighter. But passed away after suffering from leukemia at the age of 64. I remember seeing stuff. I was a little too little to remember him, but I've seen stuff since then of all the fans shooting "do" when they're big up to get him into the game. But he passed away earlier this week. A couple other folks from gold medalist for the Soviet Union at the 1968 games, a wrestler, one of the most famous ones out there, Boris Gorovich, passed away. Member of the International Jewish Sports Hall of Fame.
Oh, okay.
So he was born via Ukraine, but wrestled for the Soviet Union and passed away earlier this week at the age of, he was born at 37, so does that make him? 83, am I doing that math right? Yeah, it's 83. Lindy Mcdaniel, who was a pitcher for 20 years, mostly for the Yankees, but he also played with the Cardinals, the Cubs, the Royals, and the Giants. Had 141 career wins, 119 losses, 2-time All-Star, but both in 1960, back when they used to have the 2 All-Star games. Had 141 wins, 119 losses, and 172 saves, back when saves were a lot harder to get. But he passed away earlier this week, I believe of COVID. Yes, at the age of 84. And then 2 guitarists. One, Tony Hooper of Straub's. So he was one of the founding members of Straub's. Also their main songwriter. Passed away at the age of 77. And the original, the original guitarist of the Turtles, Jim Tucker, passed away earlier this week at the age of, how old was Tucker? At the age of 74. So there we go. Just cleaning out all the folks who, the Turtles are one of those bands who I never think they could get in, but people just remember Happy Together and have a higher opinion of them, because I still see them on some people's lists of bands from the 60s who probably deserve induction Rock Hall. I disagree, but they're at least in the discussion still. So, that's Jake Scott.
Yeah, there's a lot of happiness around the Turtles. I'm a little bit biased also because there's a lot of happy turtles around here.
Oh, yeah, there you go. I mean, if we've learned anything from Finding Nemo, not only are they happy, they talk with surfer acts.
Yeah, something like that. So
happy together, dude. Come here, little squirt.
I'm telling you, man. I was like, I can't go anywhere without somebody saying, like, do you want to swim with the turtles?
Yeah. When my wife and I we were on the island of Gili Manu, which is an island off the coast of Bali. And we took a boat out there for a day. And we're just walking around, and they had the folks who used to live on that island used to eat the turtle eggs as a source of food. And a Dutch-based organization came there and convinced the folks, if they found them, to bring the turtle eggs to them so they would hatch them. And now so many people come to see the turtles that they've hatched from this island of Gili Manu that everybody's doing much better just from getting people to stop doing that. But when we were there, we paid $10 and got to take one of the turtles that hatched out of a tank and release them into the ocean. So that was kind of cool. We got to name them, and we put our names down, and then we released Fillmore, the turtle, into the ocean. And fortunately, he did not get immediately eaten by a shark. That would have been a little distressing. So turtles are cool. On turtles.
I'm a little biased. I have a little pet turtle here, but that's another story for another time.
Nice. All right, so Jake Scott.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, former Miami Dolphin, just MVP, Super Bowl. Just seems so sad. Just fell down and not fell down. Just never recovered.
He fell and suffered head injuries. So
yeah. Just like a great player, another icon in Dolphins history. It's I don't know. It's so sad just to have another one sort of pass away. But this might sound a little goofy. I'm just sort of happy that it wasn't because of any kind of head injury. I mean, this I guess was, but concussion.
Head injury from falling down a set of stairs is a little bit different.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, just a big figure in arguably the greatest NFL team of all time.
And they'll make sure you realize that too.
Well, that's true too.
Yeah, although as a Patriots fan, I can't imagine how insufferable I would have been if the Patriots had gone undefeated in 2007.
No, why wouldn't you? I would have too if I was the Saints. As a Saints fan, if I could sort of pull that off, I'd be the exact same way. So
yeah,
I wish Jake Scott would have received a little bit more press than he has, but it wasn't that he wasn't ignored.
Yeah, I mean he's a 5-time Pro Bowler. 2-time first-team All-Pro, 3-time second-team All-Pro, Super Bowl MVP at Super Bowl 7.
Mm-hmm.
Not that many defensive Super Bowl MVPs. Also got to be one of the few people from Washington and Lee, Washington Lee High School in Arlington, Virginia. He actually ended up going to Georgia for college. For a second I read that wrong. They went to Washington Lee University for college. I misread that. But played with the BC Lions for a year. But yeah, he a member of the Dolphins honor roll. Just the main problem for a lot of those guys, because I mean the only member of that no-name defense in the Hall of Fame is Nick Bonconti, the late Nick Bonconti, and Jake Scott probably got an argument for being another from that team. I'd say he's probably next in line if you're going to induct another person from that team. His problem is he plays safety. And up until legitimately the last 5 years, there was no position on the field outside of special teams that was more ignored than safety for the whole. So we may have gotten to the point where they came back around to a Jake Scott, although, the seniors pool is so deep that, I mean, you're going to need to free dive in order to get to the bottom of it at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that was part of his problem for not getting in. They're like, oh, we got Blancani in. Now that we've taken care of that defense, and he played safety, which made it a little bit harder. So, but definitely somebody who should have been much more in the Hall of Fame conversation than he was.
Right. All right, so from here, where do we go next week? I guess something is going to come up, because it always does.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm sure somebody's going to die because it's 2020.
Very nice.
That's just the way it has gone this year. This year has been absolutely brutal in terms of what we talk about. I mean, I brought up just the athletes, but I brought up the singers a few weeks ago. Like, just the number of huge artists who passed away, starting at the beginning of the year with Neil Peart, all the way through Little Richard, and it's just been a brutal year for death. And I'm hoping, my hope is now that COVID is exploding again in this country. First of all, we were supposed to be traveling starting tomorrow to go to Boston to go see my mom for Thanksgiving. We're going to drive because we weren't sure at the time we would be buying tickets what the situation would be. But we ultimately decided it didn't make sense because we have to stop places along the way and then quarantine when we got back. But I'm hoping that Thanksgiving doesn't end up being a vector for an even bigger outbreak. You know what I mean? I know that they have vaccines which should be on the way shortly, but I'm worried about what's going to happen between now and then. So I'd really like to get through flu season with flu season and COVID season at the same time. Seems terrifying to me. And I'm hoping that we get through this relatively unscathed, but I have a feeling we will not.
Rabbit season, duck season, rabbit season, duck season.
Yes, and then it always ends as it always does, with Daffy Duck getting shot in the face.
You want to say Donald Trump getting shot in the face?
No, I was going to say Donald Duck, and then no. I was going to say Donald Duck, and somehow I screwed up my Warner Brothers, but yeah, that was awkward. That with the president's name, that was not intentional. So.
All good.
FBI, please don't come. FBI, please don't come out.
Nice. Well, we'll come up with something for next week, and we hope everyone stays safe.
Yeah. Have a happy American Thanksgiving. I know Canadian one already happened. So.
Yes, it did. It did. All right, take care. Thank you all for listening. Stay safe, everyone, and look for a lot more content from us at nonhalloffame.com.